Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Talk of the Devils, brought to you by talkofthedevils.co.uk, your number one Manchester United podcast. Oh, man, we were talking backstage. I really feel that was 3 points, 2 points dropped today. Really disappointing in the end. We should have taken our chances in the first half. Chelsea were poor in the middle of the park. We know that they've got problems, obviously, in the middle. Should have taken advantage of that. We became a bit sloppy. It was a dull second half. No one really had any chances. And thanks to Casemiro, we managed to pull it back. And I was absolutely elated. But honestly, we should have won maybe 2 or 3-0, if I'm brutally honest. Greg, debut for you today. Great to have you on, buddy. Jamie, I hope you're very well, my man. Thanks for joining me, both of you. Get your comments in, guys. Like and subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll go through it. Jamie, talk to me about how you're feeling, buddy.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's an odd feeling. Coming away from Stamford Bridge, scoring a last gasp equaliser. Usually, you'd be elated. But that does feel like 2 points dropped, like you say. I think we dominated them in the first half, but as is quickly becoming the tale of our season, the fact that we don't have an out-and-out convincing number 9 is costing us. There's so many chances that we create that should be converted and should be hitting the back of the net. But Rashford, as much as I love him, and he is playing well, but obviously we all know that he plays better coming in from that left-hand side. He doesn't have the composure and the finishing attributes needed to be sort of our star out-and-out number 9. I'm not going to touch really on the fact that there was a certain striker who didn't make the squad for today, and we can save that for later on in the show if it's part of the package. But yeah, look,
it won't be.
Okay, good. We're constantly becoming the side that rues their missed chances. That's Chelsea and Newcastle where we've dropped points now. There's no other way to say it. I think we were really good in the first half, but it's nice to be able to talk nicely about a Chelsea manager for once, because I do really rate Potter. I think he's a phenomenal coach.
He's doing bits.
We've said it on here for ages now that he's an elite coach in waiting, and I think he showed that today. Bringing off Kukurea and bringing on Kovacic changed their composure sort of 36 minutes in, whatever it was, and restricted the space we were getting. We saw Kovacic really getting up into our face and harassing the ball, which ultimately helped them come back into the second half. But I think all in all, it was a very middle of the road performance for a lot of our players, bar a couple that were. I think Casemiro was phenomenal again. Not even just a goal. I just think the guy plays the role of 2 midfielders almost. He's very good at breaking up the play, and he's very forward thinking, which is something I didn't really know about him. I've watched him for years, and his forward thinking play is not something I ever really put in his repertoire, because that's something I'd more would have attributed to Kroos and Modric. But seeing him pick up the ball and want to drive it forward is a really nice thing. I think Dalot as well. I think Dalot was good today. He did well on that right hand side, and he seems to be creating a bit of a partnership with Anthony. And I know people always are quick to judge Anthony's performance. I think Anthony was another one that was good today. He's a very different dimension winger that we have, and I like what he brings. He brings a bit of Brazilian fire. I think it was Mourinho that said a few years ago that you can't win the Premier League without a Brazilian in your squad, and he's the sort of Brazilian that he would have been referring to, because you need that fire.
3 now.
Yeah, but I don't think he was talking about Fred. Do you know what I mean? If Fred fits into that category of Brazilian that Andreas Pereira used to fit into. But yeah, all in all, I think we were the better side. We've dropped points again. It was a golden opportunity for us to leapfrog Chelsea, get into the top 4, and we haven't taken it. But it isn't all doom and gloom. We've said that this is a project that Ten Hag is undertaking. It's going to be a bit of a process. The best thing about this process and this project so far, though, is that the signs are there. It's clear for everyone to see that we're playing a certain way. We've got an identity about us again. He has a fixed 11 that he likes to play. I'm devastated for Rafa Varane. Yeah, that's very true. That's very ironic. Again, that's probably when he saw his fake passport. I'm devastated for Rafa, but it is what it is. These things happen. I think it's more down to the fact that we shouldn't be having a Winter World Cup, but that's a completely different show in itself. But positive signs are there. Me, I like to focus on the positives. On another day, we would have beaten them. The penalty was stupid. McTominay stinks at times, and that was daft of him.
We'll come to that. Yeah, it was. Really
it is what it is. Unbeaten at Stamford Bridge there. We didn't lose, which is, I suppose, a thing in itself. But we were all right.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think a couple of things on what you said, actually. Good points, well made, buddy. Casemiro is quickly becoming a very, very good player for us, and we've spoken about him loads on this show, haven't we, Jamie? You know, embedding into the team, but he's been phenomenal, and actually probably one of my favourites now since he's come in. I didn't know that ability about him either, and actually, whilst there's still very different players, De Jong, it was a good replacement for him, to be honest. He's very progressive, and it's exactly what we've been missing from that number 6 for a very long time. Yeah, I'm just gutted. Honestly, I'm just gutted. It was such a shame for many reasons, but it would have been lovely to have leapfrogged them today. And yeah, should have taken our chance in the first half. Greg, as I said, mate, thank you for coming on. And yeah, just give me your overall thoughts, really, and how you're feeling right now, my man.
I don't know, like what a difference that a few minutes makes, in fairness, because I was sat there when it went 1-0 and I was like, oh, I've got to do this show now, and the game's been, we've lost it right at the end, and it was a silly mistake, and we should have won it in the first half, and then like the goal goes in, and you're like, oh, well, it's not too bad, and it probably is what we deserve based on what we created in the first half. I thought the second half was dull. I think it went back to sort of old school Man United and Chelsea, both teams trying not to lose it more than a team trying to win it at any point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you said, it's like a feeling of disappointment, but it shows you sort of how far we've come, even in sort of 7-8 weeks, that we've gone from getting hammered by Brentford and Brighton to thinking that we should stand up toe to toe with Chelsea. And obviously we were still on a high after beating Spurs and how well we played. I don't think anyone was expecting the exact same game. It sort of looked like it maybe from the start when Chelsea lined up with the 3 or the 5, however you frame it, that it looked like we could get at them the same way. Mm-hmm. I agree with Jamie, like that the fact we need a genuine number 9 is becoming more and more apparent every week, every chance that Rashford misses. Yeah. And I'm not Rashford's biggest fan, Mark, you know that. I don't think he's of the quality consistently enough to perform at a team that's going to be winning Premier Leagues, are going to be competing even for Premier Leagues. I don't think he gets into a side that City and Liverpool at top class, and if that's where we want to be, I think we've got to compare ourselves to those guys in terms of the players we bring in, not necessarily where we expect to finish. Mm-hmm. But every chance he misses, you just think a striker probably scores like a genuine 9, probably does score that, and I think him.
I do agree with you. I think there's a lot of opportunities, particularly in the last few games. You know, he's been playing far better, but there's been a few opportunities where a number 9 does slot those home. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we are handicapped with that at the moment. I think it is something we've certainly got to look at in January, if not next summer.
Yeah, and he can't do a lot with the 2 brilliant saves that Lloris pulls out on. He probably could have tucked one in the corner, but as Henri said, just tuck it in the corner and run away, which is hilarious. But yeah, it was just, he should have scored today. He should have scored probably 2 or if not 3 through the week, and it's going to start to accumulate and probably going to start to be a case of now it needs to be sorted. And like, I'm actually really thankful for the Winter World Cup and the fact that it's a month of non-Premier League football, so it's going to cost us less than it would probably in a normal season.
You won't be saying that 2 weeks in. We'll all be bored and wanting it back, but yeah.
Oh, Saudi Arabia, Qatar will be great. I don't, as long as all the games are on whilst I'm working, that's absolutely fine. I don't really mind. I wouldn't go on my way to watch it, but no, I think we'll be okay. I think I'm still like so wary to say that I think we'll finish inside top 4 at all. But the signs are there. Things are getting better. We just need to trust in what's going on, and you can see a genuine way we're trying to play. When Chelsea changed their shape, I was pretty scared that Man United would just start to play. We'll just play the shape that Chelsea were in and not adapt. But we adapted okay. Obviously, Chelsea had 2 or 3 chances, but yeah, the second half was a bit of a non-event until sort of the last 10 minutes. So it's weird. It's weird when you score late in a game to equalise. You don't know how to feel, whether you should be happy or whether you should sort of rue the chances that you missed. But yeah, it's better than losing, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we'd have come out of that and hadn't have had that opportunity and got that goal, it would have been terrible. So I'm elated we got that, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? We should have won. We should have, and you're absolutely right. Great points, well made. You both mentioned about, and this comment here as well, disappointed, but looking at it pragmatically, we're on the right track. Philosophy has been ingrained. A few more goodbyes, and we will be contenders. And you know what? it's very difficult as a United fan to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm really, really enjoying everything that he's doing, the way that he presents himself, the way that he contends post-match conferences, any sort of conferences, dropping Ronaldo, absolutely right. And the football that we're playing, and I know it's 2 games that we can get excited about, but it's unbeaten in 8 now. I'm really enjoying it, and it's been one window, guys. 6 players, which is a lot of players to bring in one window, and he's got that working already. Give him another window or 2, and I really believe that we can get somewhere with it. And again, I have to say that through gritted teeth. But honestly, this is the first time where I feel good about it, and I really, really hope that continues. But great points, well made. I'll just come to a few things that Bruno has said after the game, and we'll get some more comments coming in. Get your comments in, guys, as well. Make sure you're liking and subscribing. Really, really important to us. Always a good match reaction, lots of other good shows as well, and I promise you'll be coming back more and more. Bruno comes in and he says, for me the most important thing is the reaction from the team after we went 1-0 down. Someone in a group chat that we had was who's not a United fan, was very much like, this would be massive for United, that the way that they was able to have that mentality, which sometimes we've lacked so many times, to do that with only a few minutes left is quite something. And I think that this will be more of a benefit to us than it will be for Chelsea and Graham Potter. I really do. It was a great cross from Luke Shaw, and after that, a great header. It was an unbelievable header. I was so happy for him, and the passion that was coming from him at the end was phenomenal. He does go on to say, we don't talk about the Cristiano Ronaldo situation. Probably asked it again. I hate it when pundits and journalists do that. I don't care about that. Let's talk about the game. We keep it quiet. We have to deal with that on the inside, and no one else has to know about it. Absolutely right. Most important thing for everyone, including Cristiano, is that the team wins. Absolutely spot on. Any other special mentions other than Casemiro? Greg, do you want to come in about Casemiro and how you feel he's done, particularly in the last few weeks, and obviously his goal today? Fantastic header.
Yeah, ridiculous header. And Kepa nearly saved it as well, which sort of shows you how... I genuinely thought he had saved it. I was fully convinced when he hit it. I was like, wow, we're that unlucky. But yeah, ridiculously good header. He's so good. We had a conversation a few weeks ago about maybe a bit of a worry that was going on with the fact that he wasn't playing. McTominay was keeping him out, but since he's come in, he's been brilliant. And who'd have thought that Man United fans knew what they were talking about for the last 3 years when we've been on a defensive midfielder?
We've all said it. We've all said it.
All we've said.
Not every channel, but our channel, yeah, for sure.
Most. The good ones. The majority of just the solidity he gives everything. Like, he was so good at the start. Obviously, he had loads of space right at the start of the game today, but he was so good. And like you say, the way he passes forward, I wasn't aware he had that in his locker either. And people can say what he wants. Obviously, when he was brought in for all that money and he signed, there was a lot of comments, he's clearly going there. He's clearly going there for all his wages, the biggest wage packet, everything like that. Well, you saw what that header meant to him right at the end. Like, he's a true professional. He's got proper passion for whoever he's playing for, and he really wants to win. And if we can keep him
absolutely right, fit,
and keep the right players around him, he'll be fantastic for United. Just try and get the best 2-3 years out of him, and then we'll be fine. But I'm hoping he's a bit of a Rolls Royce in his mid-30s. That'd be great. That he's so good he can just read the game. He doesn't need the legs. He doesn't need to outpace people, but he's absolutely fantastic to watch. And yeah, he's going to be something to build around. Yeah, I think you said in the summer, Mark, if we can get a centre-back, a goalkeeper, a centre-back, a centre midfielder, and a striker, and you build sort of through the middle and then build out. And we're sort of I'd say we're halfway there with Martinez and Casemiro. I think we need that striker. I think that he is improving, but he's not the answer long term. But yeah, it's been ridiculously good.
Yeah, very good. Just to give you a few stats, actually, which are quite incredible, really. And I'm not just saying that because he's done well and I'm biased, but he's very good numbers. 69 touches, 10 times possession won, 9 duels won, both of those. 4 tackles made, 3 aerial duels won, 3 clearances, 2 fouls won, 1 interception, 1 shot, 1 goal, 0 times dribbled past. If that doesn't emphasise just how good that is, I can't help you. But brilliant stuff. We'll move on to Anthony, actually. We've spoken about him a few times, Jamie, you and I in particular. Obviously, I felt that he hadn't really played particularly well, but he'd got 3 goals in a row, which was obviously a record at that point. He was much better today, and something that we've spoken about before, his tracking back, his work rate. Just to give you a few of those stats before I move on to you, Jamie. Anthony's game by numbers versus Chelsea, 100% dribbles completed, 89% pass accuracy, 48 touches, 3 key passes, 2 out of 4 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 long balls completed, 1 crosses completed, and he made a big impact. But talk to me about Anthony, Jamie.
Yeah, I think he's everything that we've been missing sort of on that right-hand side. He's an aggressive, direct winger who loves having the ball at his feet, and he loves to take a player on. We saw that point where he nutmegged Chilwell. He was being marked by, I want to say, I think it was Silver and Chilwell. I don't know who it was. For definitely, I know it was definitely Chilwell. He took them both on and megged them. His lack of right foot is a little bit of a worry at times, but we saw that chance that he had, and he snatched wide a little bit. So I think he probably has a bit more of a right foot than he's alluded to. I think he just prefers to use his left foot, but he's young, so that should hopefully change. With some good guidance around him, hopefully we'll see him start to take chances with both of his feet. And I think he was a bit unlucky not to add to his tally today. But the thing that frustrates me a little bit about sort of the reaction you see to Anthony is, in one breath, people will say, Sancho needs to be a bit more daring and needs to go at players more. But then they'll also berate Anthony for going at players and, being too direct. So it's like, our fan base sometimes seems to not really know what it wants from its wingers. And I'm perfectly happy with having a possession-based, winger on one side and then a dribble-based attacking winger on the other side. I think it confuses their fullbacks and it confuses their setup because they don't know what to expect. And as soon as we get a number 9 that can run off the shoulder of the centre half, or even just somebody that is effective at dropping and linking the play, I think we'll see a higher proportion of goals be coming from either Sancho and Anthony or Rashford if he's playing on that side. And I think the building blocks are there. You can see why Ten Hag pursued him for so long and why Ajax was so reluctant to give him up. But he's in a good environment for him. He said in an interview when he was at Ajax that pressure on the football pitch isn't something he feels, from where he grew up and the situation surrounding him when he was a kid. So, and you can see that he is quite fearless. And I think, that comment there that's just come in about the interplay between Anthony and Dalot, that'll come more and more with time. I think we're starting to see the building blocks of a partnership there, but it's early doors. They need to learn a little bit more intricacies about how each other plays, because there's times when Dalot will give the ball to Anthony and overlap, or there's times when he'll come in and he'll undercut, and that telepathy isn't quite there yet. And we saw a couple of instances today where that was evident, where Anthony would try and feed the ball back onto the wing, but Dalot's dropped off, and that cost us a few times. But I'm not worried. I think he settled in well. At the end of the day, he's off the score sheet for us, which for him would have been a massive worry. If we were at this point after he signed and he hadn't scored, the pressure would be building on him. He probably wouldn't be able to express himself as much. The media would be on his back saying, £80 million and he still hasn't scored a United goal. Yeah. So those goals were good, regardless of the situations in which they came. His one against City, brilliant goal. Didn't matter in the end.
You're absolutely spot on about that. Absolutely nail on the head. He had the perfect start, and it's allowed him to just get on with what he needs to do, build that relationship, as he said, and he's absolutely spot on.
And he'll only get better. He'll grow and he'll grow, because if he hadn't scored those goals but had been playing a little bit more, aesthetically, and people were a bit more pleased with his all-round performance but hadn't scored, then the argument would be, oh yeah, well, he can play as well as he wants, but if the goals are drying up and he's not assisting, then what's the point? Whereas, he started life a little bit rough in terms of his performance, a bit rough around the edges, but he was getting those goals. So I think there's more to come from him, and I think he will be a key player for us. Again, what I've learned from Ten Hag is that if he wants a player, there's a reason behind it. There's an ethos behind it. We don't seem to have this scattergun approach to transfers that we've had under previous managers, where But he signed he signed 6 players, and so far they've all been pretty much hits. I don't really see any massive outliers that have been disappointing and poor. Martinez is unbelievable. He is unbelievable. Like, every time I watch that man play football, I genuinely can't believe he plays for us. He's fearless. He doesn't care. and he's got bite about him, which is one of those things that if it's against your team, you hate it. And every team has that rat that you're like, oh, he's a proper wind-up merchant. But when it's your boy, when it's your player, you love watching it. That little bit where he pushes Jorginho towards the end.
I was about to say that. I mean, he's lucky that it was just a slight push, wasn't it? And he dropped he was never going to get sent off. But that sort of thing, you need that.
Yeah, you can get behind that little bite. So just to go back to obviously your original point, I think Anthony was good, and I think he's a kid, he's young, he'll pick up, he'll get better, and he did the little twirl thing today. That was funny. How you turning up to Stamford Bridge and doing that little twirl just for fun? He's got that flair about him. He's got that Joga Bonito flair, which we've been lacking in certain seasons. So it's nice to see, and they do it every season. This is a likable group of players. This time last year, well, probably not quite this time last year, but you know what I mean. Under Rangnick, I detested this Manchester United side. Like, I watched them; they were spineless week in, week out, and there was nothing about them that made you go, "Oh yeah, they're our boys. They're our team." Whereas this United team, they just have that little spark about them, and honestly, man, it's a rough ride being a United supporter. Yeah.
You can't explain that feeling, can you? But you're right. There's just little things that you see and feel that just make you enjoy a team, and they absolutely do have that. There's so much more to come, and it's really great. I'm feeling great about it, and that's what you want as a fan.
Good. I'm glad you are, Mark.
Thank you, mate. Marcus, great to have you with us, buddy. I know it was all a bit last minute today, trying to get everyone together and all that. Thank you very much for joining us, buddy. We were just discussing Casemiro, great goal. We spoke about Anthony a little bit, go out some stats and that sort of thing. But 2 points dropped today, as we said. I just want to know how you feel about the result and how you felt we played today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of disappointment considering how well we played and just the fact that we weren't able to convert. But hindsight is a very lucrative thing. I think going into this game, I would have taken a point. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, you're playing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. It's not really somewhere where we've had a lot of luck over the years. On top of that, we haven't really done well against the top six away from home this season. So when you really put things into perspective, it's not the end of the world. I think a point is actually a good thing from Stamford Bridge. But again, 100%. In hindsight, looking at that performance, there's a little bit of disappointment. And I think what is interesting is the fact that I think Anthony played well, but Rashford, Sancho, I don't think they were great today, particularly Jadon Sancho. No. And then also, even when Sancho got taken off, Bruno out wide couldn't really do anything. And so that left side was just completely weak today. Even Shaw, although I don't think it was his fault, I think he did the best that he could. He just really couldn't impact the game in the way that he usually does when he's got someone on that left-hand side that he can trust. So it was a very interesting game.
A lot of the time, just very quickly, just to interject very, very quickly, a lot of the time when on the right or the left-hand side, I know it looks inverted to you guys, but you know what I'm saying, it's about the relationship of the two. We were talking about this with Anthony and Dalot, and that will build. But if you look at Gary Neville and Beckham, right, Beckham allowed... What are you guys laughing at? What's happened?
Fred, the little rat in the comments.
Sancho, yeah. Behave. The relationship. Look, Gary Neville was only as good as he was really because of the player David Beckham in front of him allowed him to be the overlaps, that kind of thing. On the left-hand side today, you're absolutely right. Shaw did what he could. He wasn't bad by any means, but because there was not really a player in that left channel to help that out, it just doesn't help. If it was better going forward because you had that relationship there, we would be absolutely applauding Shaw today. Do you know what I mean? So sorry, carry on, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely spot on. And I think that was one of our biggest weaknesses. We just couldn't get our fullbacks into play. And on top of that, the decision-making in the final third from the likes of the likes of Sancho, the likes of Rashford, the likes of Bruno, it just let us down. The quality in the final third was really the biggest problem today because I thought our midfield was all right. I thought we really had a control and a squeeze on Chelsea, particularly in that first half. We dictated the tempo. We had the attacking initiative. I mean, we forced Graham Potter to take off one of his defenders in the first half and completely change his shape. That should tell you everything you need to know about how well we were performing. I mean, it's not usual for a manager to take off a player 38 minutes into the game. No injury, no nothing, no forcing circumstances, apart from the fact that they were just that dreadful. So we really did dominate that game. And I think it's just hard to see when you don't see the shots towards the goal, when you don't see the clear-cut chances, when you don't see that killer instinct in the final third, it's hard to quantify how well we played, right? And because Chelsea edged their way back into the game and obviously took the lead courtesy of a Scott McTominay mistake and a Jorginho penalty, it really, I think, kind of distorted people's perception of the game. I think people were just really disappointed by the fact that we weren't able to get the 3 points, which I understand. You know, it is pretty disappointing, but overall, I'm not that mad. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm feeling pretty content with tonight's result.
Just quickly off the back of what Mark has just said. Then, you know what? As well, what impresses me is that, because I agree completely with everything that he's just said. Then, in terms of, you know, we deserve to be
spot on,
a lot further away than where we were. But if this happened to another United side, you know, six months ago, 8 months ago, whatever, if we concede late on, we'd crumble. We would absolutely fall apart, and, you know, we'd probably lose 2-0. It's telling of what Ten Hag's doing to the squad that we managed to dust ourselves off, pick ourselves up, and go up the other end and score. You know, with such little time remaining. So I think that, again, that's another thing that we can take away from tonight. Trying to be positive is that there's clearly a bit of a better mentality going around the squad in a minute.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on, and great points, well made, Marcus. Absolutely spot on, buddy. Ten Hag has gone on to say, I have to make a big compliment to my team, kind of agreeing with what you two have just said, to fight back with a fourth game in 10 days. You see the spirit and how they deal with setbacks, really good. First half, Rashford had 2 big chances, Anthony 1 against 1. You have to score goals in such moments, because in top games, 3 chances is massive. You have to score. But then he goes on to say, we dictated the game, and I'm happy with that. If you concede a goal late, it is difficult. 8 minutes before half-time, we had some troubles, but defence in the second half, we didn't have any troubles. The second half, we didn't really create big chances, but also Chelsea didn't. Anything to kind of go through on that, Greg, do you feel?
I nearly forgot to unmute myself there. No, I think he's quite right. Like that, and I agree with Jamie. Like 8 months ago, United team wouldn't have fought back from being 1-0 down like that. And you saw straight away once the goal had gone in that he was just urging everyone upfield, and they were fighting and determined to sort of try and force something. But I think he can be proud of them. The team have fought back really well. It was a really good performance in the first half. I agree with what Marcus said. Forcing Graham Potter to switch up his team so early in the game should be a result, because this Man United team last year weren't forcing anyone to do anything. They were being walked over left, right, and centre. But yeah, I think it's just a case of, yeah, it's I don't know. I still don't know how to feel. Like I still think we probably should have won it, but I get what Ten Hag's saying in terms of like to fight back and score that goal. You can build on it, and it's much easier to build on from a 1-1 than it is a 1-0 defeat when you've missed chances.
Yeah, absolutely right. Varane obviously picking up an injury today. Looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. I think I would be if I stretched my legs that far. Certainly would. But it's obviously a big worry. You know, Lindelof actually came in and did very well, and I think that he will be the go-to to sort of be that rotation player. And he still seems to have built up a relatively good relationship with Martinez. But obviously Varane is going to be a big miss. He's been sensational for us as well. You know, Martinez gets all the plaudits, but I think Varane has accompanied him brilliantly. Is that a worry for you going forward, Marcus? Obviously, we hope for a speedy recovery. We'll find out in the next couple of days how severe that might be. But would you be happy going forward if Varane does obviously have a few games out? Would you be comfortable still?
Yeah, I think it's got to happen. I think that Varane and a lot of other players are looking obviously at the World Cup, and you could tell by the look on his face just how distraught he was to be injured. So I think for a number of different reasons, you've got to protect your players. I think under normal circumstances, a player gets a bit of a niggle, or you know they have an awkward situation where they stretch too far, and you basically try rush them back for the next few games because you know that long term there's not really any issues. But because of the World Cup, I think Varane and a lot of other players in that situation would be very apprehensive to rush back. They'd be very much saying to Ten Hag, like, listen, I need some time out. You know, I can't risk it. And for the sake of Manchester United in our season, obviously, we need to make sure that we bubble wrap Rafael Varane and make sure that we use him sparingly because he's so important. And I think tonight in particular, when Lindelof came on, Lindelof did all right. You saw that Lindelof can be a decent squad player for Manchester United. And one thing I will say about Lindelof is that even though we might not all agree that he's good enough to start, he's a consistent 6 out of 10. He's a consistent 7 out of 10. He gives you consistent performances. You know what you're going to get and you know what to expect. And so, I think Varane, the only positive of Varane being injured is that maybe Lindelof will get some game time. But yeah, it's not great, man. It's really not great. And I think with Maguire obviously having hamstring issues, I think Bailey out on loan as well. It's, yeah, I don't know how Ten Hag is going to figure or navigate his way through the season with all these injuries at the back.
Yeah, it is a concern. But Lindelof hasn't been known for injuries. And if he has to step up a little bit, as you say, rightly pointed out, it's good. It's a blessing in disguise to get more minutes, and he comes in and gives 6 and 7s every week, especially against with someone like Martinez. So I don't think it's going to be too much an issue from a depth point of view, but I think if we offload a couple more defenders, obviously we'll certainly have to get some more in. Listen, I want Varane and Martinez starting every week. I think they're absolute brilliant pairing. Unfortunately, it's not going to work out like that, and I think Lindelof will be fine, and hopefully that will be fine going forward. Right. We're going to come to... I'm just going to read out a couple of comments. One that made me laugh was obviously the Sancho has more...
It's giving me a new Twitter cover photo.
Mustache. Yes. I'd like to see that. We'll have to have a look at that later for sure. Richard, great to have you back, buddy. He's always in the comments and I really appreciate it. Decent away result that. We did well to come back with hardly any time left. Kept our heads absolutely spot on. Right. Ratings. We're everyone wants to go. It's Saturday night, 8:00. Ratings. David De Gea today, and I'll come to you, Jamie.
6 out of 10. He didn't really have much to do realistically. I had no idea what Bruno was saying to him before the penalty, but it obviously didn't work. I'm going to guess that he turned around and said, "Oh, remember, he's going to do the hop that I do, so don't dive straight away." And De Gea has obviously gone.
Yeah, I think
can't remember what he said.
Well, he didn't move until the very end, but he just didn't go the right way, did he?
I'm sure he's already going down as Jorginho goes. Well, anyway, even if I'm wrong, I don't think he did much wrong today, De Gea. I don't think he had much to do. He covered well. We've seen him be a little bit less static again. He's come out a little bit more. The players are clearly trusting him a little bit more to play the ball back to. We saw against Spurs, his distribution was a bit better. His distribution to our fullbacks helped us sort of break up the Spurs counter press. So he's clearly changing some of his ideology, but I don't think that's anything more than his contract's up for renewal and he's looking to try and show the bare minimum that means we keep him. We still need to be pushing for Diogo Costa. So 6 out of 10, easy result for him to pick up some good points in because he didn't have much to do.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. Couldn't disagree with you. Greg Dallow.
Probably a 6, maybe a 7. Like, he was really good. He's a really good athlete, runs the flank really, really well, provides a lot of support. Still think his final ball's missing. Still don't trust him. I still feel like every time he goes on the overlap, he's going to put in a cross that's going to decapitate the centre forward rather than actually with any sort of like a good enough pace to get ahead on it and get it into the net. But he was solid enough. He's been solid enough all season. He's obviously really improved over the last 18 months. So yeah, I'll go 7. Why not?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Totally in agreement. I can't believe there was always a good player in there, but I cannot believe, even defensively, how much he's improved this season. I said about this. This is another thing I love about Ten Hag is the improvement for some players. Dalot, Rashford's now back in form. Shaw's picking up. Martial, I appreciate he always seems to go through this and he's injured a lot, but he's really picked up through pre-season in the games that he's played. Dalot, he's a different player. We always knew that going forward he was great, and he showed that today. I was in the airport on Wednesday, and I only saw drips and drabs. And every time I watched the game against Spurs, he was absolutely brilliant. One of the best players on the pitch, getting back, sliding tackles, playing forward, overlaps. It was absolutely brilliant. I think he absolutely needs that credit. I think I read somewhere yesterday we're being linked with Jerome Frimpong from Leverkusen. Fantastic right back, and I do think we need that competition. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka will probably go, and I'm happy having Dalot as either our first or second choice. So yeah, brilliant stuff. Marcus, we'll move on to Varane.
Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't play the full 90 minutes, but for the time that he was on the pitch, I thought he was faultless. I don't really remember him making any mistakes, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But yeah, I think he had a very clean game, very tidy game. And the fact that Chelsea barely created any clear-cut chances is an indication that our defense across the back played well, So for me, I'll give Varane a 7 out of 10. And yeah, very important player.
Yeah, very. And because he came off injured, I'll give you Lindelof as well.
Yeah, I mean, Lindelof, I thought he did well when he came on, so I'll give him a 7 as well. I think, again, he's a player who gets a lot of shtick, but what's that saying? If you judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, then you're going to be very disappointed all the time. And I think that's the case with Lindelof. You got to look at what he brings to the table. He's not very athletic. He's not particularly strong. He's not great in the air. So judge him on the things he's actually good at. He's positional awareness. He's reading of the game, and the fact that he just knows where to be at the right time. And he very rarely makes mistakes that lead to goals. People accuse him of being timid and being shy, and that's true. But sometimes that can be a good thing. When you're playing next to someone like Martinez, you let him do the aggressive stuff. You let him be the guy who tries to drift out of position and cut off crosses and cut off balls, and you just be the cover. You just make sure that you're there to cover for any gap that he leaves in behind. And Lindelof does that very well. Maybe not to the same level as Varane, I admit that, but well enough. So 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on with that. And I think you would have remembered in previous shows, Stu talks about the centre-back partnership quite a lot. You have two people that complement each other. And I think that Maguire, for example, and Varane are the ones that are kind of there to cover, as is Lindelof. But then you've not got someone else to really make the challenges, to be aggressive, to have a bit more speed, like Martinez did. I'm not saying Varane's slow, but you get what I mean. He's more of a reader as opposed to Martinez, who's very different. Gets sort of stuck in and that sort of thing. And yeah, brilliant stuff today. Jamie, we'll move on to Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I think potential to be the best defender on the pitch today. I think it's between him and Trevor Chalobah. Luke Shaw does this though. That's the only thing that concerns me a little bit, is he has those moments in the sun where he looks absolutely unplayable, works his way back into the United team, and then seems to take his foot off the gas. Whether it's things to do with his commitment to his fitness, the comments around that, or he just has a few bad performances. But I don't think he put a foot wrong today, really. He's carrying on that form that's seen him keep Malacia out the side. His progressive ball carries, and even just the way that he passes the ball as well. He's an elite attacking left back. And I know it's one of those things in it that it's all hypothetical, but if he was Brazilian, if he was Spanish, if he was Italian or whatever, he'd probably get more plaudits than he does for his attacking creativity.
I agree.
He is an elite fullback when he wants to be, and I just really hope that this is the final time that we'll have the conversation about his commitment, and that he just keeps this. We can expect bad form from people; it happens all the time. But I don't want to go through another period of having to sign another left back to give him competition to get the best out of him again. But yeah, I think you're looking a solid 7.5, 8 for Luke Shaw from me tonight, because he was always on the front foot, looking to drive the ball forward. I think he was the top ball carrier on the pitch out of 22. Well, it's more than 22, you know what I mean. And yeah, he looks good. And it's never a problem to have two good players in one position. We've said it so many times on the show that every other top team in the world seems to have, multiple players that can play the same position, but it's only a problem when it's Manchester United. So I really hope that Luke Shaw and Tyrone Malacia, fight each other in a positive way for that spot, and they bring the best out of each other. But once again, we saw a glimpse of why Luke Shaw is probably England's best left back. Why he should be on the plane to the World Cup, and why we've been able to count on him for so long. So fingers crossed it continues, and we continue getting a lot of good performances out of him.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I almost forgot about Martinez, but I felt like we said his name so often that we'd had spoken about him, so I'll quickly give him to you, Greg.
8. I think that's probably been as consistent as he's been. He's probably been like that all season. He's so good, man. Like, so good. He gives us an extra passing option when he steps up into midfield, because he can play the ball really well. He reads the game so well. Like, he's so combative. He wants to try and win every ball. He's even calm under pressure. Like, he gets the ball in difficult areas or anything like that, or he's trying to see out an opposition player. He uses his base really well. He's really calm under pressure. And like the way people talked about him at the start of the season, you'd think he was only 5'9" as of this year. Like he's a professional footballer that's 24 years old. He's been 5'9" since he was probably 18 years old. And I was having a conversation with someone through the week, and as a centre back at that height, you have to be better than every 6'4" centre back at all the other bits that they're also good at. So playing out from the back, you can't be as good as a player that's 6'3" because you need to be better than them because you've got that disadvantage. You need to read the game better than a 6'3" centre back because of that disadvantage.
Yeah.
So, and I think he just does. He makes everyone around him so much more calm. He brings a lot of calm to De Gea as well, I think, especially. But yeah, he's just so good. So definitely an 8.
Absolutely spot on, and the point about having to do everything so much better, absolutely right. And he just brings so much calmness. I know I've said it so many times, but I absolutely love the man, and I hope it continues. I'm sure it will. I think he's an absolutely brilliant acquisition this summer. Right, moving on to the main man. Then I'm going to give him to all of you, so you guys discuss the point winner. Should have been the match winner, but the point winner in the end, Casemiro. I gave you the stats earlier. He was sensational today, really. So I'll come to you, Marcus, first.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? We've got 2 beautiful Brazilians playing at Manchester United, and one of them saved us today from a potential, disappointment at Stamford Bridge. Honestly, I think he's amazing. And I think what stands out to me the most about Casemiro, besides the goal, is there was a moment in the game where he was getting pressed very heavily by Chelsea players. I think it was 3 Chelsea players pressing him, and he just looks over his shoulder and plays a long ball over to Antony. And this is somebody who receives the ball on the half turn, turns on the swivel, plays a 60-yard diag, and it lands perfectly at the feet of Antony. The level of, execution that you need to pull that off, or quality that you need to execute that, is so difficult, and it's underrated. And the reason why I bring it up is because people often say, well, Casemiro is good at breaking up the play, he's good at reading the game, and he's just a destroyer. And he is good at those things, and that's what he excels at. But nobody ever talks about the fact that he can be somebody who takes the ball off the back four and distributes it across the field. He's got a good passing range. Yes, it's not as good as a Frankie de Jong, and it's not something that he's known for because he played next to Modric and Kroos.
Very quickly, we discussed this earlier. He's more progressive than any of us realised, actually, but not quite as good as Frankie.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. People don't apply context, because when you're playing next to Modric and Kroos, you don't need to distribute the ball. Your job is very simple. Just win it and give it to them. But he doesn't have that at Manchester United, and now we're seeing that he can actually do this. And I love it, man. On top of everything else that Casemiro brings to the table, the technical ability and the levels above, like Fred and McTominay and everyone else we've watched play in that role, is honestly a breath of fresh air. It feels like we finally have a specialist CDM who we're all comfortable with since Michael Carrick retired. Because even when we signed Matic, he was coming towards the end of his prime. I think Matic had just won a Premier League with Chelsea, and we just didn't know how to get the best out of him, right? And we didn't sign anyone else besides Matic. So this is our first proper CDM since Carrick moved on. And some people would say since Roy Keane, but I think that's, disingenuous to Carrick. Anyways, I think he was man of the match, 8 out of 10. That's what I'm going to give him. And yeah.
Great points, well made again. It is a breath of fresh air, absolutely right. Moving on to Eriksen, Greg.
I thought he was okay. I feel like he can get bullied a lot, especially on set plays and when teams come at us. I feel like he can get bullied a lot, and is really nice and pretty. He is on the ball. I do think we probably needed Fred to come on. I was surprised when Fred came on for Sancho, but we'll obviously speak about Sancho in a minute. But he's really, really good. He's really calm on the ball, and you see players look for him, especially when trying to play it from the back. He's really good under pressure. So probably, I'd say a 6. He didn't do anything bad and cost us anything, but I don't think he was fantastic and as good as he'd been at the start of the season.
I was going to ask this question earlier, actually, and you've just reminded me again. Eriksen's obviously been a fantastic acquisition. You can see that, technically brilliant. Obviously had an injury, and that's why he's obviously not been in the game the last couple of games at least. But going forward, do you think maybe we could see, and anyone can jump in on this, more Casemiro and Fred? Obviously, they played together very well for Brazil, but do you think we could see that more often going forward, or depending on the opponent, that sort of thing? Jamie?
I think it depends on the opponent. I think if you're playing, like when Chelsea brought Kovacic on, I think that bringing Fred on was the right call. You need an energetic midfielder, well, at least two energetic midfielders that can sort of shrink the midfield space as much as Kovacic did. Because what Kovacic is very good at doing, and we saw it straight away, is he's good at harassing any sort of ball playing midfielder or centre half into either making a mistake or quickly turning over the ball. He covers sort of every blade of grass, and he's been very good at that since they signed him, I think. So bringing Fred on allows us to counter that with our own press. So depending on how they operate in the midfield, I think we'll see Casemiro and Fred more often against midfields that want to dominate the ball and want to minimise the time that we spend, especially as we start to develop this reputation as a side that can play the ball. I think under Ollie, a lot of the time we'd soak up pressure and we'd hit on the break. So teams would often look to sort of either nullify our wide players or try and stop the transitional play. Whereas now we look more comfortable on the ball. You know, you look at how Martinez likes to break the lines and feed the ball forward. Casemiro is obviously a ball playing defensive midfielder that we're now realising. So I think we'll see more teams try and overload and swell the midfield and prevent us from doing that. I think Fred offers us the opportunity to counteract that with our own version of that. And I think with Casemiro as well, one of my favourite things, just to touch back on the rating, is for so long when we played with the McFred double pivot, we always said we were almost down to 10 men from the kickoff because they would do the responsibilities of one footballer were shared between two of them. Now that Casemiro plays in that low role, he does both of the jobs that they had better than either of them ever did. He's a better ball winner.
It's really highlighted that we were doing square pegs round holes.
Yeah, massively.
It really has.
Fred is not a defensive midfielder. Like he is not. McTominay is not a defensive midfielder. Like, and we've said that so many times on the show. So to deploy them both as defensive midfielders and effectively just say to them, right, look, your job is to disrupt the play, try and get the ball out to more creative players.
You're missing a whole other man, aren't you?
Yeah. So you look at Kante. When Leicester won the league and then when obviously Chelsea subsequently won the league with Kante, everyone praised the fact that it was like having two men in one position because of how good he was. Now, I'm not saying Casemiro is, for us, as good as Kante was because it's early doors, but we've seen that the way he disrupts play, the way he turns over possession and then also carries the ball or passes the ball and is progressive with that, he can be just as good because it gives us the outlet that we haven't had for years. Like Marcus rightfully said, Carrick was our last elite number 6, our last elite deep line midfielder. Matic, we didn't do enough to complement him. And you know what? And I know he's gone, and we should stop talking about this. But the fact that we signed Casemiro the summer that we let Pogba go is criminal because Casemiro and Pogba together would have been a joy to watch. But I think Casemiro and Fred could be the move. Going against more energetic midfield, like I say, that want to bully us, want to harass us, and get in our faces because I think they're a bit more press resistant, the two of them. Eriksen, again, we've said it, he's a phenomenal player. I think today the game probably just got a little bit past him. He was a little bit out of it. I'd maybe deploy Eriksen as the 10. If we're playing Casemiro and Fred, I'd play Eriksen as the 10 and try and have as our main creative outlet higher up the pitch. Because I don't think Bruno was on it today as much as we know he can be. I think he was still decent, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, I've gone a really long way about answering your question there, Mark. I do apologise.
You've answered it beautifully, mate. So it was wonderful hearing that. So no problem at all. Yeah, spot on. Absolutely spot on. And we'll come to Marcus with Bruno. Obviously, nice little segue from Jamie there.
Yeah, I thought Bruno was a really confusing performance tonight because there were moments where I thought, okay, that's good. But then there were also moments where I wanted to pull my hair out in the final third when he, not just on the ball when he gave it away, but also off the ball, especially after Sancho came off and he was operating on that left-hand side. He made a couple of mistimed runs. There were times when Rashford was on the ball and he was running directly next to him. And I was thinking like, dude, get yourself into a better position so Rashford actually has an option to pass. The tactical understanding was missing today. And maybe it's not his fault because, Sancho coming off for Fred is a little bit weird. Asking your number 10 to now go play out wide, but still also tuck in at times is it is, it's a little bit weird, especially against a Chelsea team that's very compact through the middle. So I think Bruno was a little bit confused as to what he was meant to be doing, to be honest with you. Not his best performance, not his worst either. I think
Not
I'm going to just give him
his fault, actually. I think when
Yeah.
he started and we were playing brilliantly,
Yeah.
he was excellent. But then you're right.
Yeah.
He was moved over to that left-hand side and looked lost. That wasn't his fault. That was Ten
Yeah.
Hag, and then he changed it up again. Spot on, though.
100%. I think it was a tactical issue. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. I think the only blemish on his performance and the only thing that he's got to take personal responsibility for was just the misplaced passes. I mean, there was even a chance where there was 3 United players open on the right-hand side and he decided to shoot it into row Z. And I was like, dude, come on. Come on.
I was so disappointed with that chance in the second half when it fell to him and it went almost to Marsh. And I really thought, I was expecting just so much more from that. It was just a bit disappointing in the end, but yeah, spot on. We will move on to Sancho. Spoken about him a lot recently. It shows glimpses of brilliance, but I am worried a little bit. And obviously he's getting pulled off quite often now and not really given numbers that he would at Dortmund. Appreciate it's a different league, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, a concern. Greg, what would you give his performance? And just give me a little bit more about Sancho going forward.
Yeah, he is a little bit of a concern, but I don't think he's a concern. Like, you see people on Twitter all the time saying like, "Oh, Sancho's bad." Sancho's not bad. Sancho's a really good footballer. He's a fantastic footballer. He just needs to be brave and just have a go and do what Antony's doing. Like, I'm surprised when Antony's coming to the team and how he's playing that Sancho isn't just looking at it and going, "Oh, so I can have a go and lose the ball. Yeah. I can take someone on." Like there was a few times in the last game, and there was a couple of times instance today where he was 1-on-1 with a defender exactly where you'd want Sancho, and he just didn't. He plays the easy pass, he knocks it back, and you just want him to have a go. Just run at him and see what you do. Because see, if you run at him and get tackled in the counter, no one's going to be blaming you for running at him, because we would rather that than pass it back, pass it round, pass it sideways. And I know why they're not doing what I'm about to say, because it's to do with the pressing system and the numbers and how Ten Hag will be coaching a non-pressing team to suddenly press with players that have never really pressed before. But I'm surprised that front 3 isn't more interchangeable. It doesn't move really. All that changes ever is Sancho. Well, if it was Sancho and Rashford like it was, if Ronaldo's on, the wingers will swap, but obviously the centre striker will stay the same. I'm surprised when it's not Antony, Sancho and Rashford that it's not interchangeable. And I kind of get why as well, because when you're teaching players to press, you don't want to be telling players to be like, press this player, but then also interchange. And then when you interchange, make sure you go and press that. You'll just confuse them and you'll cause issues. And we've seen before sort of a force feeding of a system with what Rangnick was trying to do last year on this Man United team and how it didn't work and how quickly they rejected it. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to the World Cup and then we somehow don't get a striker in January. I don't think that'll happen. I think we will. But if we somehow didn't get a striker in January and Ronaldo's going to leave and Martial's not fit, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some more rotation in that front 3 to try and help Rashford and Sancho get into the game a little bit more.
Is Antony. Terrific player.
I think he'd be good on the left. I wouldn't put him from the middle.
I don't know.
But he could rotate to the left.
He's so weak with his right foot. So weak. He's so one-footed.
Yeah, but he could just go down the byline. You could just go to the byline.
Of course, but they know where he's going every time. They know where he's going every time. Yeah. I know you've got that on this side as well, but he can still take players on. We've seen him do that with his right foot. But if you were trying to cut inside, you're then only giving yourself that one opportunity, and he will not shot, apart from that one chance today where he hit with his right. And
I think if you play Antony on the left, you need a fullback that's good with their right foot. I think you need to have a fullback that plays high up with Antony and allows for the option of an undercut. But I agree with Greg. I think there needs to, having a fluid front 3 would definitely benefit us. It's just, there's a few logistical issues with that. But again, go and get Ivan Toney.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in and just say on Sancho, the problem with Sancho, and I'm not defending him, by the way, he should 100% adapt his game and change the way he looks at things. But the problem with Sancho is if you watch them at Dortmund, he isn't the type of player who just runs at defenders and makes things happen. He's very much somebody who relies on interplay. He's very much somebody who relies on, having people who run into space and move intelligently off the ball. And the problem is we don't have that in place at the moment. We're still a work in progress under Erik ten Hag. On top of that, we don't even have like a recognized number 9. We're still playing Rashford through the middle. So there's a lot of things that are not fixed around him. And as a result, he's struggling. And this is the problem with players like Sancho. On Twitter, they call them system players, basically players who need everything around them to be perfect before they can start performing. And it's an issue, very big issue, considering the amount of money we paid for him and considering how long he's been at Manchester United now. I think we need to have a conversation about Jadon Sancho and what the future is as United fans, because he's got to sink or swim, and at the moment he's sinking.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely right. And Greg, when you made the point about taking players on, I think you saw that in the Bundesliga. The reason why he was getting the numbers he did is because he's technically probably our best forward.
He's brilliant.
He's
so good.
Absolutely brilliant, but he's just not got that confidence to do that. And he needs to go on.
Yeah, just quickly, because I'm a massive Sancho fan, and obviously I've been on this show a lot of times talking about how good I think he is. And I do think it'll click for him, and I think he will come good. I think there's far too much talent there for him to not. My thing is, I wonder how much of it is down to the fact that he's 21, 22, right? He joined us last summer. He's so far played for 3 different Manchester United managers that have all deployed him in a different way, and I don't know a single young player, as far as I can remember, that's played in such a sort of a distorted environment and still managed to hit their potential that early on, because he probably doesn't know what's expected of him. I know Ten Hag's probably sitting him down and going, this is what I want from you, and this is how my version of Jadon Sancho and what I want you to do. But in the back of his mind, he'll have Ralph Rangnick, what he wanted from him, and then before that, what Solskjaer wanted from him. But then there's still probably that conflicting thing of, well, actually, this is what worked for me at Dortmund, even though it's a different side. They did play different brand of football,
and that's where inexperience comes into it, doesn't it? He's still young, absolutely.
So, and I think it will come good, and I think everyone is spot on pretty much in what they're saying, and together there is a solution in everything that we've said. In that, once Ten Hag has his ideal system and the players that fit that system, Sancho will be free. Because I agree with what Marcus was saying, is that he isn't this, like I keep saying, Antony is a separate profile of winger because he's so direct, whereas Sancho is that technical winger. He's more akin to as an inside forward, a number 10 or whatever, in the way that he wants to give and go. He wants to work the ball rather than drive the ball. And I think we don't really necessarily have that opportunity, because Rashford is very much a on the break player. He likes to get in behind and take advantage of his pace off the shoulder.
Even though he's offside 9 out of 10 times. But
yeah, but still.
He was born offside. Absolutely was.
But yeah, so I do think it'll come good. I think we need a number 9, and I think we'll see more out of Jadon Sancho. There's still that spark there, and there are signs. Against Ammonia, when we did the post match on Ammonia, we said that Sancho I thought he was very good, because that game played right into his hand, because he had a bit of time on the ball. He could play the give and goes. He was able to penetrate the box off the ball and receive the ball to feet, which is where he's very good at receiving the ball in those tight areas and managing to sort of figure out what he wants to do with it.
For the goal in that game as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So I think I agree with Marcus that there is a conversation to be had about Jadon Sancho. I don't want to see him get written off yet, because I've seen how bad this fan base can be with players that aren't just quite hitting the expectations. There is a lot of time for Sancho to figure it out. The money is irrelevant. I do think that the fact that we paid £70 million for him, when Liverpool are paying £80 million for Darwin Núñez, Chelsea paid £100 million for Lukaku and sent him back out on loan the next season. Money in football is highly irrelevant anymore. Jadon Sancho is one of the best prospects in world football still, and I do think he'll hit his ceiling with us, especially with the best bald manager in Manchester.
I'm so pleased you said that. I was wondering where you were going with it, but listen. I tell you what, guys, you all 3 of you are outstanding today, and thank you so much. Right, let's finish this off then. We haven't spoken about Anthony, have we? I got so ingrained in what Jamie was telling me then. I lost train of thought.
Sorry.
No, you're right, brother. I'll come to you, Greg, on Anthony. We didn't do Anthony, did we?
No, we didn't do Anthony.
Yeah,
Anthony and Rashford, I think, is what we got left. Anthony was really good again today. I get what you say, like he is very one-footed. They sort of know where he's going, but there's one thing knowing where he's going and then being able to stop it. He will benefit playing more and more with Dalot, because they'll get that partnership. They'll start to link up a little bit better. But he's really, really good. He wants the ball all the time, even with a defender like right on his back. He wants the ball to feet. He doesn't. He's not one of these wingers that will only take the ball in behind and run in behind, which I think Rashford can be guilty of sometimes. But Anthony will take the ball into feet. He'll try and back away from the defender, even to sort of pull someone out of position and then knock the ball back. He's very much a team player. He was really, really good today. I think that's probably his best overall performance. He's obviously had the goals in the other games, but in terms of his overall performance, his defensive work as well, probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So last but not least, Marcus Rashford. To you, Marcus. I always give you him. I don't know why that is. Probably because you got the same name.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great performance by him today, but not to his own fault. I think, again, we're seeing the issue with Rashford playing as a number 9. We all know that he is somebody who very much relies on that explosive pace and that chance to run in behind, which against a Chelsea team that was playing very deep at Stamford Bridge, very disciplined defensively, and with an astute manager like Graham Potter, you're not going to get that opportunity, are you? It's very rare that you're going to get to hit them on the break. And so, especially when you have majority of the possession anyways. So he didn't really have an opportunity to do what he wanted to do. And even the few moments that he did get into the game, he was let down by Bruno not really making the right sort of runs. He was let down by the likes of Sancho not really being on the same wavelength. And then obviously his touch and sometimes making errors on his own just kind of let him down. So for me, it's got to be a 6 out of 10. Again, I think that we are now seeing the importance of not having a number 9. Because as much as Rashford worked against Southampton, he worked against Leicester. Okay, he didn't score against Southampton, but against that type of team, he will score in the future. As much as he worked against Arsenal as well at Old Trafford, it's not going to work in games like Chelsea, where they are not really just going to camp on the halfway line and let you hit them on the break. It's just not going to work. And it's going to be interesting to see what Erik ten Hag does to solve this issue going forward.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Listen, guys, you've been absolutely phenomenal today. I really, really appreciate your time. It is 8 o'clock, 8:30 on a Saturday night, so you go enjoy your nights now. And everyone in the comments, give these guys a follow. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Obviously, shows coming up. I think Wayne's doing his again with Paul Parker, former United Red, on Monday. They'll probably discuss the game a little bit more. Always a really good watch. Jamie, you doing yours with Luke Steele?
I don't think so. Not this week.
Okay. Well, in a future Tuesday, he will be doing some more shows with Luke Steele, former United goalkeeper as well. It's been a great show, guys. Honestly, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Get liking, get subscribing, get sharing. And we appreciate all the returning people and all the new people I've seen today as well. Enjoy your weekends now, guys. It's over. And we'll move on to the next game next week. But until then, we'll see you next time.